There, folks. Happy Wednesday. I don't know, are Wednesdays happy? Let me know in the comments. Are they a happy day or a bad day? I don't know. But today I wanted to start off my little rambling with a meme of all things. And well, no good video starts with a meme. I can't show it to you because I only remember it. I don't have it saved or anything. But someone posited a question. You wake up one day, it's 2002. What are you going to do? And somebody had the coy response of, I'm going to use my lunch money to buy a house. And I don't know, that kind of sat with me. Like, it's in good humor and all of that, but it really prompted me to think about what is the current life for someone who's in Gen Z or millennial like compared to the young adults that you'd be seeing in the 80s, 70s, boomer years, or whatever, what the differences would be in all of that. So what I wanted to use this video to do is kind of just to go over my life now. I've talked a lot about my past and things that I've done, things that I've worked on, but how am I living my life right now in this humble abode that I call my apartment and all of that? I don't know who this video is for. I guess it can really be for anyone. I think more particularly for people in my generation. More just to show them, like, hey, here's somebody else who's the same age as you, and this is how they live, and the way you're living, probably not that bad, probably much better, or better off in comparison, whatever. But also it's for the older folks too. I don't say like grandpa or anything, but people who have more experience and all of that, just to show that, there's that misconception that our generation is notoriously lazy, we don't care, we expect free things to fall into our laps. I don't think that's always true. I don't think I've really deep probed that question much in my own time, so I wouldn't have an answer for you. But I think it's really varies from individual to individual. Like, I think it really depends on how people have grown up. I mean, some people have grown up very privileged, much more fortunate than others, and others, like me, you gotta work your ass off to get what you want, and that's important, and that's how I'm here right now. Sometimes I forget to acknowledge the things that I've earned. So being someone who thinks of themselves in the latter category, someone who genuinely needs to work and do well to succeed, I kind of just wanted to go over my lifestyle and just sort of pose the question of how has the young adult formative years of someone living today compared to someone of yesteryear, if you get what I mean. So contrary to the typical format of the videos on this channel, I do have a little scratch list of just some points I want to go over. So firstly, my life context, just really quickly for those of you who are new here. I was born in 99. I am 25 now. I will be 26 in this June of 2025. Happy New Year for those of you who've not gotten a Happy New Year from me yet. And I lived a pretty average middle-class lifestyle, a good life. Only child, 2 parents, 2 doggies, even living pretty good. I mean, yeah, high school sucked, but that goes for everyone, so that's water under the bridge. I can go over that another time. Then I got to college, got my major and degree in philosophy. However you might think about that, that's up to you. And freaking COVID happened, and that really stirred the pot a little bit. And then I got my first full-time job upon graduating, and then after a year of that job, I got the money so I could get my own apartment. And I've been living here for the past 2 years, and that brings us up to date into the beginning of 2025 in January. So here we are. And with all that as the base context, I kind of just wanted to go over what the typical week is like for me. So I am very, very fortunate to have a hybrid schedule at my job. I'm a document coordinator, so it's a lot of stamping documents, approving documents, sending documents, requesting documents. It's a very tedious job, very systematic. I always really appreciate my job because I find that it has a good symbiosis with my high-functioning autism, where it's very much agenda-based, skill-based. You need to have a system in place. So they feed into each other very well in that respect. But yeah, going back to the hybrid schedule, there are some days where I'm in a physical office. I Uber there. I do not drive. That's something we'll talk about another time. And there are other days of the week, the majority of the week, where I'm actually in my apartment and I work on my work computer. This is in front of me, my personal computer. Then I got a work computer that's off to the side. And then funnily enough, in college, I was so excited for every day. So I was totally insomniac. I had a lot of trouble going to sleep, but now I got the full-time job. I find it so easy to nap. After work, I just crash on the couch, throw up Netflix, YouTube, freaking Markiplier or whatever, and I'm gone. And that's how my days go pretty much. So I'd say like 3 years into my job and 2 years into having my apartment, I wouldn't quite use the word mastered like the agenda. Like I use that term very loosely, but I have a pretty strong understanding of the ins and outs, what I need to do, what it takes for me to relax, because those things are both very important. You got to consider both of those when you're entering young adulthood. So once you figure those things out, then it's a question of what do you do with your spare time after the 9 to 5 or when you're on the weekend. And for me, I do several things actually. And it took me a long time to actually figure them out, to be honest. Even though I'm in a new town, that's a town over from my parents' town, and I got this whole place for me to do whatever I want. It did take me some time to figure out what exactly I wanted to do and how I'd entertain myself, educate myself, or whatever have you. So I think the first thing I started doing was walking around, getting to know the town. I've always had an attunement to graveyards and cemeteries. I just love walking around in that silence, like reading the headstones, walking around those dirt trodden paths and all of that. And it's just a nice thinking space for me. So that's something I've always loved to do when the weather is good enough. I mean, right now it's like in the friggin' 20s. I can't do anything and it sucks. So walking's really a big thing. I go to local Savers or I can go out and get some Chinese food, which is always good. So yeah, I got those little things to fill in time when I'm not napping, right? And then I come back and then I do whatever it is I do in my apartment. But then later on, I wanted to branch out socially a little bit. We'll talk about that a little bit later on as well. So again, as I mentioned before, I love teaching and I love writing. So I actually started a writing group at the local library, which happens every other Thursday. It's been on pause because of holidays, but that's going to be resuming in February, which I'm really excited about. So I'll be able to do that again. And another routine I built in for myself is there's a local coffee joint. So what I can do is I can go there, bring my computer, I can do my personal writing and stuff like that. I'm a creative writer, philosophy writer, so I like to do all that. Might start drawing again too. That's something I've been considering. So yeah, basically that's how my weeks go. I have my job. I've got stuff that I do or do not do after my job, whether it be napping or working on a project or whatever have you. And then I fill in my time with just trying to build experiences. So try keeping social to the greatest degree I can, being that I'm someone who grew up very introverted. And yeah, just feeling out the town, figuring out where I like to go, where I like to walk. And yeah, just keeps me on my toes one way or another, whether I'm physically walking or I got something spinning around in the gears up here, you know what I mean? Another thing I really wanted to talk about, money. When I get my money, where does it go? First thing foremost, rent, utilities. You siphon it off to those parts first before you do anything. I was fortunate enough to be raised in a household with two really good parents, one of which very good with spreadsheets and money. And my father showed me the ropes. He showed me, like, here's how you lay out a spreadsheet, here's how you account for your rent, here's how you account for your electric, and then after that, you got some money left over, put some aside for savings, which I could be a little better at, and then you can use the rest for fun. So, yeah, absolutely, I focus on rent and expenses first. And after that, I mean, freaking look behind me. That's where the fun money goes to, my freaking action figures. And even then, I'm trying to cut down because it's a new year, new me, whatever the kids are saying these days. And I want to be better about saving my money, paying off my Discover card, and, not buying things that are fun, but at the same time are more fulfilling. Like I've made it a goal for myself too, because I'm a creative person. If I'm going to buy something, it needs to be something that I can turn into a project that I can have more fun with, aside from just taking it out of a box and putting it somewhere. It's got to be more than that. So that's another tip that I recommend for people of my generation. If you are wanting to invest in fun, sure, do that. Just firstly, do it responsibly. Put your rent or any expenses you have before anything else. And second, when you have an idea of what your hobbies or your interests are, be sure that there's something productive coming from them, and that you have a little bit of creative license over what they become and what they mean to you. I mean, like, my thing is action figures, but for other people, it could be hanging out with your friends, going to restaurants, I don't know, makeup, sports, cars, whatever. But, be sure that you got a game plan. That if you're going to go to this certain game, who are you going with? what memories you're gonna take with you. Don't go just to go. Do it with purpose. Or at the same time, people would counter me and they say, "Hey, be more spontaneous. Go just to go and see what happens." And sometimes that works. It's worked for me too. So I don't know. What do you think? Spontaneity or going in with a game plan? But the last financial tip is I could give towards people in my generation is never go over budget. There's no need. You probably have enough stuff right now. I mean, being an action figure collector, there's like whole thing with pre-orders and scalpers that gets really scary, but don't fall into those temptations or those pitfalls. Like, more good things will come. You already have good things. If there's no need to go over budget, don't go over budget. Just chill out, resort to something you already have, and stick with that for the time being. And for me, it's easy. I got an action figure. I can grab friggin' Gizmo from my shelf over there and I toy around with him for a bit, and then I'm good. But for other people, maybe you went to a sporting event. Instead of going to a new one, go through the photos from the last one. Whatever floats your boat. Everyone's got a different thing. So you've gone over an average week. We've gone over money. The third of these things I want to go over is my social life, which is small. It's not quite rapid, not quite present. It's a very lonely life. That's one of the downsides to being in this generation, I think. Like, I still have a few college buddies who I can count on one hand. I have no friends from my high school years or grade school years at all. They're all gone. They're not local. Like, they're pretty distant. They're in different towns and stuff like that. So more often than not, I gotta reach out to them through text or phone call or Discord or Zoom or whatever have you. So socially, things are really quiet. And I think that is the biggest challenge for this generation in comparison to other generations that we've seen in the past. Especially in light of us being part of the digital age with social media and all that, but also COVID on top of that. I mean, can't you believe it? I mean, with all like the Zooming, the remote everything, it's just less face-to-face experience. And well, it's got its perks. I mean, I could tell you for sure, being someone who's autistic and who has a lot of trouble with transit and socializing and stuff like that. But at the same time, it really does siphon those valuable nuggets of experience that I think former generations had the pleasure of having that we don't get. So it's really hard to harvest the proper circumstances. That's one of the reasons why I moved, to plant myself somewhere where more experiences can happen. But at the same time, I can't just sit here and wait for them. I gotta go out and start stuff. I started a writing group. It's still very early on in the alpha stages, so I gotta wait to see where that goes. Same with my coffee shop. I go over there and do my writing. Have I talked to anyone there? No. But at least I'm going somewhere where people are walking around and there's life to speak of, instead of just staying in my apartment napping the whole time, right? So it's so important that you do those things. And then, of course, romantic relationships, nada. I've never been in a relationship, never dated or nothing. I'd love to have a girlfriend one day. I'd love to see what that's like, to exchange cultures, get new ideas. Like, as someone who loves education, talk about an education greater than just being with someone. At least that's my speculation. I mean, being someone who's never been in a relationship, but just being able to get to know someone that personally, I can't think of a better opportunity to learn and grow. So that's one of my pursuits, but at the same time, I don't try to put a big magnifying glass on it, because if you get too much into that headspace of thinking about things that you don't have that you really, really want, that's what drives you crazy. That's what I have found. Like, it's important to have goals and aspirations, long term and short term, but not to the point where it sours what you already have, where it distracts you from work, it uneases your comfort, and makes you unable to relax, or you can't sleep at night. So have those goals, but learn to put them to the side. Don't tap into them too often. Do it casually, do it like, all right, I'll flip up the computer, screw around with those dating apps I spent way too many hundreds of dollars on, and it's just, maybe one day things will lie out in my favor. But for now, if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen, and that's how it goes. And I'm not like not dating because I've got low self-esteem or anything. I actually say my self-esteem is quite good. I mean, the only negative that I have about myself personally is that I'm technically overweight. Like, I looked into my documentation from the doctor and stuff like that, and it said I was morbidly obese. And I'm like, what? Your mother? Excuse me? I got wide shoulders, but I don't look like a big guy, So I've never had a self-image problem physically. Mentally, it's a whole other story. I'm not dating because I'm having trouble with myself, but because it's so hard to find other people. I think that's one of the big challenges that you have today that you didn't really have so much in previous decades. The expectation was that you go out there, you bump into people, and things happen. Like the trope that I love is where, you got two people like running around a busy street, they bump into each other, someone drops their books, and the guy's like, oh crap, sorry. And then they go down to pick up the books and all that, then they look up, their eyes meet, and then they're grandparents in 60 years or whatever. That's not what happens anymore. I'm not sure if that was once true, it definitely ain't now. That's a damn fact. I think that's one of the things that really nebulates modern culture right now. The ways that we connect, they feel so forced and synthesized and technological. And then, you got AI on top of that. You got the dating apps. So it's almost like we're not meeting people in the natural way that we as a species were meant to. So I guess I'm trying to say we're kind of a danger of our own devices. We're kind of stuck in this generation. I think because of the technology, because of COVID, because of social distancing and all of that, it's made it very difficult for us to create lives in our formative years. And those formative years, they're, well, formative. They're the most important years in our lives. That's when we learn who we want to be or who we'd like to become. And that's so important. So when you have all this technology and external circumstances deciding that for you, then that means you're not really having as much insurgency in the situation as previous generations may have had. I mean, that's my hot take. I mean, feel free to disagree with me, but that wraps around to my main point of this video, posing the question, has young adult life of today changed compared to the young adult life of the past? I know I've iterated that same question throughout this video, but that's kind of the point that I wanted to bring up. Do you think because of technology, because of economy, again, that meme I said where you could go back in time and buy a house with your lunch money, or, just the general sensation of loneliness that we're feeling, like, can you say that's all totally our faults? Or is it the fault of economy or politics? Or is it a little bit of sprinkling of everything? I think more everything. It's a little bits and pieces of personal circumstances, our own choices, and then the ways that we were brought up, the way that what we've seen in the media and things like that. I think that's another thing. This isn't going to be a political channel at all, or a channel where you discuss social stuff very much, because I've boycotted news. I don't watch the news at all. I just find it totally unhealthy. I see no point in watching things that I can't change. And if I wanted to change them, I wouldn't be able to change them, so what's the point? I vote and I pay my taxes, then I'm done. So, I mean, then again, that's where people might call me lazy. That's just how I keep sane, because I'm not looking at that stuff all the time. But for those people who do, that's what prevents them from generating their own unique opinions on the world, because they keep seeing the exact same sides bickering about the same old junk, And they're never looking at themselves intrinsically in the way that former generations would have, because they don't constantly have a monitor in their face. But that's a whole other tangent. I don't want to go there. That's a little bit of a nugget of something we could talk about in the future. As I say in all these videos, I always go off on these tangents, these branching off points. If you want me to go over them in depth in a dedicated video, you can always let me know. But yeah, today was just a little ramble, a little bit of an explanation of, how I was brought up, how I'm living currently, and my views on why it is that I'm living the way that I am right now, being someone who's very secluded, very isolated, mainly focuses on just themselves, doesn't have a whole lot of relationships, versus previous generations who might have had a little bit more of a luxury in that department. But then again, there are people who are in my generation who do have those luxuries of being more social, having more money, etc., etc. I think I'll cap it there. Give me your thoughts. I simply just wanted to give you an idea of my experience, how I'm living right now. This is just what the life of someone in this generation looks like. And let me know in the comments, is your life similar? Is it better? Is it worse? Would you say it's different, though similar? Like, I don't know. I just think we're living in a really interesting world right now. So I'm going to leave it there. Just a little bit of food for thought. Do you think things have changed? Do you think it's just another generation going through the same troubles just through a different format? Or do you think that we're genuinely steering ourselves towards a more challenging future, a more difficult future than previous generations have ever seen? Or maybe I'm just a selfish Gen Z or millennial who's saying everything is bad because it's my generation and you old folks don't understand. Maybe that's the case. Maybe I'm just too in my own head. But it's just something to think about. Let me know your thoughts. I'm curious.